All right. Joe, thanks so much for hopping on with me today.
For sure.
Always a pleasure. We actually got to film some content on your platform last week, and so glad that we can bounce around and just I think getting these conversations in the air in front of people because I think we learn a lot from other people's experiences and stories, and I think podcasting and this is a great mechanism for it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I'm a
So,
podcaster
yeah,
myself, so we love to interview people and get their perspective. So I'm on the other side of the table right now.
awesome. Perfect. So I want to talk a little bit about what you're building because we both serve solopreneurs with a little bit of crossover, but in slightly different ways. I'd love to have you throw in a little bit of a plug for it early on, but also just to talk about, I think what it is and why you're building it. I'm curious about.
The why comes from that kind of journey that a lot of times entrepreneurs go on as they start building businesses. So my history is way back when, wanted to buy something and I didn't like anything that was for sale. So I built my own. It was, in this case, I was in the shopping center development business, was trying to find some software tools to figure out where to put shopping centers. Didn't find anything worth buying. Built my own. Through trials and tribulations, it eventually became a separate company, turned into a company called Trade Area Systems that I co-founded with another guy. And we ended up selling it to some of the largest retailers and shopping center developers in the world, sold it in 2020. And so my story was always, if I wanted to buy something and it didn't exist, probably other people did too. And I also wanted to buy something which was a task management tool that would let me work with anybody I wanted to, not just people on my team or other people that use the tool. So I started imagining this kind of combination between Asana and Facebook, where it was free, anybody could use it with anybody they wanted to. Started building the app, but in the meantime, it was like, okay, where are we going to sell it? I think Carly Reese, she's my fractional CMO, and she said, we should sell it to solopreneurs. They don't have teams. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, let's do that. That's great. Where do we find them? And we looked and there was no place to find them really. You know, some little niche Facebook groups here and there, but no like really good place to go to reach the masses. And then when I looked deeper, I found out that the masses were somewhere, depending on who you talk to, and if you include side hustles, 60, 70 million people just in the US. And
Mhm.
I said, wait a minute, let's build that. So we changed directions, still have the app in the back burner, still use it internally. But the fact is that we just said there should be a place, we think, for solopreneurs in general, as there is like the SBA for small businesses. And the thing was, we did a survey of over 300 solopreneurs, asked them a lot of questions, but one of the ones was, what are your greatest challenges, regardless of what they called themselves, regardless of what they did? Lead gen, sales, and time management were the top. So we said that's universal. There can be some different strategies, some different details, but the big picture stuff, we can help all those people. And if we bring them together, they can help each other. So when you said there's some overlap, you're going in and you're directly helping people. I'm trying to do something more scalable, like at a lower price point, to help people like you reach the people that they should reach, but to help them reach each other and help each other and work together and hire each other. And so it's really more of a kind of a place than it is coaching business, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I've seen, and probably, I think we've both done a lot of interviews of this group of people. They're the problems that they face when solving for those three challenges that you mentioned are dramatically different than when they're part of a bigger company. When they're part of a bigger organization, there's teams, there's bigger budgets, there's bigger infrastructure to move these projects forward. When you're wearing all the hats, you and a couple of freelancers along the way, it's like not only navigating the strategy, but the actual deployment of it when you only have a certain amount of resourcing is very different.
And the lack of subject matter experts. When I had that software company, we had a salesperson, we had marketing people, we had just these people had these specific skills. And now you're trying to do a lot of those things yourself, maybe not all of them, and it's just what we look at it from the perspective of saying, what's the Pareto principle? What's that 20% of this topic that can get solopreneurs 80% of the results? And no matter where you look, you can find that kind of stuff and cut through some of this is to do it really right. A professional would do it this way, but let's shave off a big hunk of that and still get some results. And that's been a lot of the fun. One of the things we've built out and are continuing to build out is an AI to answer business questions from the perspective of a solopreneur and not somebody that's an employee-based company or a subject matter expert. And that's been a challenge, but it's working. It's coming along, and I think it's going to be really helpful.
Yeah. What do you think has been the most interesting takeaway from how that product either facilitates answers or how it functions? Like, that's a new piece of information for me. So, what's been the most like eye-opening thing in building the AI specifically?
Well, I think the most challenging aspect of it is that it's built on top of, in this case, we're building it on ChatGPT. I don't know if we're going to switch that or not. But the biggest challenge is that it wants to go back to the kind of general knowledge base sometimes. And if you ask the question a certain way, it gets it right. And if you ask it a different way, it doesn't make the connection. And I think that it's got something to do with the way we've hooked up the tech and we're fixing it, but it's not getting released until April. So plenty of time.
A whole
It's only
month.
early March right now, but
Right.
no, it's going to be fine. I'm not worried about it. It's actually very good. I don't like anything to be wrong. And so it's just, there are times when it leans back on that because you want that, because I went in one time and asked it to help me pick paint colors for my room just to see what it would do. And it gave a very good answer, but it had nothing to do with any of the training data we gave it. So it's nice to have a little bit of that backup, but you just need to get that balance right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think AI is this ever evolving, beautiful resource, especially for solopreneurs. I think the people that aren't leaning into it at all are doing themselves a big disservice. And I think about it, the idea of like it doing everything, having these agents who like you click one button and 35 things happen. I think that's a little bit out of proportion and really in the too early stage. But I think if you're not leveraging AI to help run your company, whether it's writing assistant, research, idea creation, editing and feedback, I feel like you're leaving a lot on the table.
I completely agree. I'm co-writing Solopreneur Business for Dummies right now. And there's a lot of writing happening very fast. I'm not using AI to create the content, but I created this GPT I called it You're Wrong. Basically told it to be reasonable. Don't be so damn nice. Like ChatGPT is always so nice about everything. I'm like, just if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me disagree with me. If I get it all right, great. Give me a prize. And I run stuff through it, and it's amazing. The feedback, it's so right on. I like it better than native ChatGPT because if for some reason native ChatGPT is just too polite to really get right into it. And it's been very powerful. I'll put a chapter through. I'll say, what do you think? I'll say, yeah, you got this and this right, but this is not right. You're being way too simplistic here. And sometimes I don't need to be that complex, but it's been very helpful for that. And also fact checking. Not that you want to use ChatGPT as a fact checker, but if I come in and say, here's a comprehensive list of blah, 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 and it goes, no, there's this and this too. And if I look and go, oh yeah, that's great. That's really helpful to make sure that you're covering all the bases.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think about it like I'm going to give you an input and I want the output to be about 75% of the way so that I can pick it up, continue with it, enhance it, make it sound like me. Because yeah, I think we can all tell the people who are letting ChatGPT write their websites, like it's so terrible. So yeah, we got to get away from that. The people that are just trying to have it like run everything and they're not putting their own, perspective and style to it. I think that's a little bit outrageous, but
yeah, it's a mistake. The whole thing reminds me of like data science, right? With these data people that study data or do data analytics, and if the good ones spend 75% of their time cleaning the data before they do any analysis, right? Because you got to have clean data. And you really should be spending 75% of your time training ChatGPT or some other AI to get results out that you can then not have to work too hard to edit. But it takes a lot of input. I think George B. Thomas, he's involved with Lifestarr, and he has done an amazing job of training up ChatGPT in order to sound like him. And so he has minimal editing to do but he also seeds it with a lot of really good information to then just get it structured and formatted and voiced. But yeah, you don't have to do that. But what you don't want to do is copy and paste from ChatGPT and stick it in your website or an email or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's my focus is I give it a ton of source material that explains who I am and what I'm about. And then I give it like a podcast transcript or something. And I'm like, hey, spin this up in a few different ways. And it's been useful. But again, that last 25%, I really feel it's important. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Listen, I want to change directions a little bit because we were talking about, I think everyone who works in a solo venture or who has built something has some kind of guiding principles, some kind of philosophy around how this stuff works. We were talking a little bit about before the recording about how you see it and your perspective on that. So I'd love for you to share your perspective, because I think hearing a lot of different people's versions of how this stuff works. I think what I've seen through a lot of these conversations is there's a whole bunch of stuff that's fairly aligned and fairly similar to everybody else's, but it's that individual's learned experience or that individual's challenges that they've gone through and that guide how they think about it a little bit differently. So I'd love to run through yours.
Absolutely.
Pick up.
Yeah. So it starts with the assumption that if you're choosing to be a solopreneur, you're not choosing to scale at all costs, right? This whole idea of scaling as the only real goal is not what you're about. If it is, why are you giving up employees? The employees are the most powerful scaling tool that you can engage. So from that, it says, okay, there's some other reason or reasons that you're doing this. When I call those goals, you have goals that you want for your life. And so it starts with saying, if we're choosing to be a solopreneur, we're choosing to build a business that's somehow going to serve our life. Hence the name Lifestarr. And they took the other R's on there so I don't get confused with the medevac helicopters. But the idea here is that if that's the case, then start with your goals. Like, I've had the unpleasant experience of building a business up from scratch that I hated running. And I won't go into details. We don't have enough time, but let's just say plan A didn't work. The plan C would be to shut it down. I went with plan B, which was to convert it into a service company from a SaaS company, basically. And it was awful. I hated running it. It was just hard. And so I realized then that when you start a business and you run a business and you grow a business or change it, those goals that you have for how you want your life to look, especially if you're a solopreneur, need to be front and center. So I built something called the Solopreneur Success Cycle. And the concept is that you start with defining your goals and what success looks like for you. That can include income, but it probably includes something like being able to go to my kids' games or getting to go skiing when the conditions are good, or spending time with my wife, or doing the kind of work I want to do. There's just 1,000 reasons why, but there's some reason or reasons why you're doing it this way instead of the traditional way. So then you start with those goals and success, and then you go from there. And I'm going to share my screen. I know that not everybody can see it, but I'll talk through it. Here is the Solopreneur Success Cycle. I say there's 7 steps because nobody ever sets goals, right? But the idea is there's really 8 steps. Goals and success is step 0. Once you have those goals in place, now you have to envision your business, right? So if you're starting from scratch, maybe you know what you want to do, maybe you don't. You want to work for yourself, you want these life goals. Think through what kind of a thing that you could do as a business and how that might look. We have a whole process for that and how to go through that thought process. Once you've done that, then you start the planning phase, right? So now I know what I want to do. Now I got to plan how I'm going to go and set it up. Get the planning phase done, set it up. That's the 3rd step. And from there, you start executing. But you don't just execute. You execute and you learn what is working for you, what is not, what is serving your goals, what is not. What do you realize about what you were trying to do or your goals were wrong? All these things, continually learn for some period of time. Move then to refining or maybe reimagining your business. Sometimes people get started and it doesn't work. You need to reimagine it. But maybe it's just some tweaks. We have a whole process for how to do that. So then you reimagine the business or refine it, figure out what you might do, then decide which things you're actually going to change. We have a framework for that. So the things that are going to be the most impactful, you don't want to try to change everything at once. And then you make the adjustments, go back to executing and loop back through. So it's a kind of a flywheel that continually goes through this process after you're up and running of executing, learning, refining, reimagining, deciding what to change, and then adjusting. And that keeps the business in sync with maybe changing life goals. It keeps the business in sync with changes in the world. A lot of solopreneurs have been impacted by the advent of AI, which wasn't really even a thing a couple of years ago. People are making adjustments, and rightfully so, because if you were a third-rate copywriter, you don't have a business anymore. Not that we had And I knew anybody that was a third-rate copywriter, but if you are a good copywriter, you still have to address the fact that ChatGPT isn't as good as you when you change your messaging. So you get the idea. It's just a function of basically saying, as the world changes, as my goals change, I need to change what I'm doing as a solopreneur. So this whole process, this is informing Solopreneur Business for Dummies. It's informing all of the courses that we have and creating. And it's just a process that seems to work pretty much for anybody that's starting a solo business.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I have a couple quick questions about it then. You've got the first thing, which is have some design, like how do you want this business to serve your life? And I feel fundamentally the same way. If you're going to have a solo business, that's going to be that creation of whatever from you to someone else, helping someone transform, helping someone develop, whatever the thing is that you're going to offer. And you're not going to grow it into a big corporate structured thing. Why not have it tailored to exactly how you want to live? Because you're going to be in it, operating it, functioning in it all the time. So why do you have those first three steps in the order that you do? What's the philosophy behind it? Have you seen mistakes or problems being created if we're not going in those first three steps? So before the execute phase, what's the mentality with that?
I think that if you think about the idea of, let's just do a hypothetical. Sometimes it's easier just to do a hypothetical. So let's say we have somebody and they say, I want to have dinner with my wife and my kids, or my husband and my kids every day, or something to that effect. Let's say that's the goal, is just to be home in the evenings and time for the family. So now that person is some kind of a consultant. I don't know, but they consult somehow. And there are a few different options for how they could run the business. And they've got a goal in terms of income. If they are a consultant that goes on site, then now they're in a situation where they could probably charge more, right, than if they're working remotely and a little more hands off. But by the same token, that's going to impact either their ability to be home with the kids or their service area, right? They're going to have to stay local. So now thinking through those kinds of things, it's important before you start figuring out how this business is going to work, which direction you're going to go in there. So I think that's where I'm coming from on this. I'm not saying that some people are doing things that are very standard. I'm going to be a life coach. I'm going to work remotely. There's not a lot more that has to go into it. You're going to probably use Zoom, but there are other people that have much more complex businesses or much more nuanced or possibly many possible options. And so that process is powerful in terms of helping people to come up with a plan that they don't wake up like I did one day and go, I hate this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I really like the execute/learn, right? Because as we're deploying this stuff, as we're going in, I think if you're of the mindset that, hey, the plan that I had, I'm going to follow it and I'm not going to let go of it, is a ludicrous way to do it. There's so much iteration. There's so much that breaks between our initial assumption and how the world is actually going to react. I've got this super great service and I'm going to email these people and they're going to see the value right away and they're going to want it. And you email all the people and the crickets, nobody cares about what you have to say and what you have to do. So I love that guiding philosophy. So how often are we iterating between that phase, which I think is an important phase, and the next phase, which is let's go challenge it. And do we want to reimagine or do we want to redefine it? What's that phasing? How often should we do it? And what does that process look like?
I don't have an opinion about how often, because I think it depends on the business. And I think it depends on how things are going. So if things are going really smoothly and there's no problems, why stop, right? If everything's great, why mess around with it? But if things are really bad, if you're not making any money or you're working 80 hours a week when you were supposed to be working 40, then you want to come to it. We encourage people to decide on a time frame that would make sense for them, just to revisit, because it takes your eye off of the execution ball. It's a little working on the business instead of in the business, which is very powerful, but by the same token can impact revenues and your ability to produce, as it should if you're taking time for it, or your ability to work the hours you want to work. So it really depends. The process for us is pretty simple. It's just that a lot of times when we're just working and something happens, doesn't go well. And it's like, have a document, have a place where when something screws up, just write it down. We have a little process for how to iterate, what to note and that kind of thing. And just put it on this log and logging the different challenges. And then as you come back to it, then you can start deciding on which things are worth addressing. Some things are, and there's these frameworks, there's a few different frameworks you can use for this. But if it's a huge lift and it's a minimal improvement, probably let it go. But if it's not that hard and it's going to make a big difference in terms of either freeing up your time or avoiding customers being disappointed or whatever it is, then you go in and you do it. And we also have a thing which says if it's a really quick fix it now. If I see a problem with our website, I don't sit there and go, I'm going to wait till next quarter to fix that typo. I'm here, click, done. So it's one of those things where if it's just a couple of minutes of time, 5 minutes of time to fix it, go for it. But it's the logging aspect, because people, as we just we're working and we're not sitting there logging those issues. And that's the real behavior change that we're trying to instill.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, log it and then assess it and then decide how to prioritize it, I think is the most important, because we all want everything that we all want it to be perfect. We all want it to be seamless. We all want what we build to be this great thing, but embracing the imperfection, embracing messiness, embracing having to just sometimes triage and do the best with what we've got, and know that it's such an important mindset shift, because I think the people that are determined to and are fixated and are obsessed with the perfection are either people that never launch, or people that they launch and then they just get stuck in a cycle of a death spiral, if you will.
This is the kind of advice that I created for myself, right? Because I do have that propensity to want things to be perfect, and I'll find 10 things wrong and want to fix 11. And I have to hold back on that inclination, because it robs productivity. It's not as important as you think it is. The fact that there's some thing that's not really ideal about whatever in your website, people aren't going to notice it as much as you do. To let it go, but you can put it on the back burner a little while. Like I said, if it's a typo and I'm on the site, I use HubSpot. So I just go click, opens it up, fix the typo, I'm done. I love it. If it's some major revamping of some code, that's gonna wait until we have time to do that if we need to.
Yep. Yeah. And listen, being a solopreneur myself, it's that delicate balance of the time, energy, and attention, and holding true to this lifestyle that you promised yourself. And I'm not to say that there's not seasons. I was talking to someone yesterday. Yeah, these 14-hour days, and I do it for 3 weeks at a time every 4 months because I just need to get ramped back up. That's okay. There's seasons where we have to put our head down and act in a very unhealthy way, because sometimes that's what it takes to succeed in this world. But I think it's going back to that guiding principle and actually having a vision, which is the first thing that you said. And I love is having that guiding vision for what you want your life and your energy and your time to look like, so that you can keep coming back to it. And you're never going to have this perfect version of it. Sometimes we're going to be overloaded with work. But if we keep coming back to it, I think that helps keep the balance.
Absolutely. Again, going back to writing this book, we had this opportunity and I'm like, oh, we're launching a business. Oh, and writing a book. Oh, good. It's hard, but it's not permanent. And it does get me to a place where I do want to be, and I do want my life to be, and I want the business to be. So you bite the bullet on something like that. Absolutely. No, you don't want to play by the rules too stringently, because you'll miss opportunities. And like you said, that idea of putting in the heavy lifting every once in a while, it's worth it. As long as it's not, what happens is sometimes I've seen this in larger companies too, where the business model becomes overwork, right? So the only way that the company functions properly is if everybody's working 60 hours a week all the time. I've been involved with a number of startups over the years, and my position on that was, you are planning to fail, because now when things get tough, you don't have any bandwidth to expand into, right? So now if we need to increase hours by 20% because something's happened or there's some great opportunity, you're going to lose people. They're just going to quit. So you can't do that to yourself either. If you have a business model that involves you working 80 hours a week and you don't want to work 80 hours a week, you don't have a business model. You're basically just borrowing from the future, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. This is a great conversation. So if I've got, as I should with the name of the show, if I've got some solopreneurs that are looking to connect with like-minded people to find different types of connections, where can they find what you guys are working on?
So we have, the website is lifestarr.com, and the star has 2 R's, lifestarr.com. We have something that called Lifestarr Intro, which is this free tier, free forever. It gets you access to what we call Lifestarr Central, which is just a place on the web, and there's lots of community and there's content, searchable content. And we have a virtual water cooler to go hang out with other solopreneurs when you want to take a break. and just a bunch of things for solopreneurs. We have the Aspiring Solopreneur podcast, which is one of the top solopreneur podcasts. It's in the top 2.5% globally. And I do that with Carly Reese, who's a fractional CMO. I'm still a solopreneur. I don't know if it's going to last forever. But so really, those are the two places to find me. If I'm also on LinkedIn. And if you want to just look for Joe Rando on LinkedIn, there's a few of us. I'm not the guy that builds the flying saucers for Hollywood, and I'm not the professor at Vanderbilt. I'm the other one.
Damn, the flying saucer guy. That's a hell of a competition to go
I
up
looked at
against.
his company. I went, oh, I wish I had done that. No, he builds all kinds of props and things for Hollywood movies, but it looks like a lot of it's spaceships, and I'm a geek, so I love that. But yeah, we've actually chatted on LinkedIn a few times. But anyway,
Yeah, I've tracked down a few Mike Malls in my day to have conversations, so I understand that. Awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. We'll link this all up in the show notes. And yeah, if you're looking for community, which as solopreneurs, we know that it can be lonely. We know that it can be tiring and you can sometimes feel defeated when you're stuck in your own head and you don't have access to other people, peers, etc. So yeah, highly encourage that. And I appreciate the conversation today.
yeah, thanks, Mike. This was great.